Hello and welcome to 21st Century Vitalism, a podcast asking the question, what does it mean to be fully alive in the 21st century? I'm your host, Brett Kane. I'm a licensed massage therapist and mindfulness meditation instructor, and joining us today to help us answer that question is Irini Rockwell of the Five Wisdoms Institute. Irini is an internationally recognized Buddhist teacher, author, coach, and trainer for the past 30 years. Her books are The Five Wisdom Energies, a Buddhist way of understanding personalities, and Emotions and Relationships, and Natural Brilliance. She has taught in spiritual and personal growth venues worldwide, and in 2002, she actually founded the Five Wisdoms Institute. She was formerly a professional dancer, and then she trained in contemplative psychotherapy, authentic leadership, and Tantric Buddhism. Today, we're going to be diving into her core teaching and one that I have found incredibly transformative, and that is the Five Wisdom Energies of Tibetan Buddhism, also known as the Five Buddha families. So this teaching is all about the way that we perceive the world. It's about reading the energy of the situation. In more specific terms, there are five distinct energies that once you learn to see them and understand the textures of them, it completely transforms the way that you interface with your reality. This is a really beautiful and honestly just radical teaching on the nature of relationship and who we are, the foods we eat, the landscapes we find ourselves in. And this is actually found within the Tantric Buddhist system. So in Tibetan Buddhism, that's called the Vajrayana, or the diamond-like, or the indestructible vehicle of teaching. And the Vajrayana is all about seeing the sacred in the mundane. On every single moment is a rich, raw, dynamic opening of experience that we can actually use to ride the current of into expanded state of awareness that isn't confused or neurotic. So for me, I found this teaching while I was doing my meditation training with David Nichtern. I then took a weekend course on it. I've read her book, The Five Wisdom Energies, which is kind of like the introduction to this that she then expands on in her following works. And the fact that she gave me some of her time is incredible. Like I said, she is a lineage holder here in the West for this ancient, this practice, this way of viewing the world is thousands of years old, and she is the torchbearer here in the West with the Five Wisdoms Institute. She actually does a lot of trainings that help people get into this and utilize it for their professional and creative lives, and it's an honor. I mean, that's honestly my favorite thing about doing this show. Also, when my phone rings is another favorite. But what my favorite thing is that some people who I would have never dreamed in a million years are agreeing to come on and talk with me. And Irini is one of those folks that I'm honored and I'm humbled, and I'm so gracious to be able to open my platform up for this teaching to have a presence and to introduce you to it, because you don't need to be a Buddhist in order to explore this. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at how to read the energy of the moment, what the different energy signatures are. There's kind of a presentation starting us off describing the five different distinct energies. And then we kind of go more into a back and forth on how to integrate this and explore some of the subtle nuances with how this shows up in our lives. And yeah, this might be one of my favorite episodes, but I mean, this is one of my favorite teachings I've came across, so I am very biased. So if you want to support the show, if you're really enjoying what we're doing here, this weird cross-pollination of modern and ancient and old and new and science and spirituality and activism, if you're really liking this tapestry that we're weaving here, then you can support the show by heading on over to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a review. You can subscribe over on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, doing all those. We also do have a Patreon now. Once I get a consistent amount of listeners, I'm going to start releasing bonus content. So there's going to be bonus episodes. When I have ads, there will be ad-free. As you can see, if you're on the YouTube, we are doing video now. So that's cool. A lot of room to be growing into, and the quality of guests that I'm getting, I'm astounded and bewildered, if you will. I'm really happy with these conversations. I'm enjoying this process immensely. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining me on this adventure. Please drink some tea, do some stretches, and open your heart for Irini Rockwell. This is an incredible conversation and an incredible teaching. So here we go. Irini, hello and welcome to 21st Century Vitalism. I just want to start by saying thank you so much for your time. It's genuinely an honor to have you on.
And thank you, Brett, for doing this amazing project of getting wisdom out in the world. Wonderful.
Yeah, it's definitely gravely needed in this current socioeconomic time, and a big part of this podcast is addressing the current moment of things. The 21st century gives us so many unique stressors that we've never really had to deal with, especially with technology. And the reason I wanted to reach out to you is I just found your work this year, as I was saying before we were recording, by studying under your friend David Nichtern. And as soon as I heard this teaching of the 5 wisdom energies, I immediately, it really, really dramatically shifted the way that I perceive the world in a way that not many teachings have done for me in this concise of a way. Mm-hmm. So to start us off, I'm just kind of curious of your journey into understanding these energies. And what was this like for you to did you also have that big download moment of like, oh my God, like this is a thing? Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, well, I've been a dancer all my life, and I think that has a lot to do with why I resonate so much with the idea that the world is about energy, that there's an energetic dimension. So in 1972, let's go back there, I was sitting in a friend's apartment in Boulder, Colorado, where Trungpa Rinpoche was teaching, and I opened a book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, one of his Trungpa Rinpoche's first books, and he is my root teacher, my core teacher, and it was talking about the world was full of energy, and it applied to humans, people, and phenomena, everything, the weather, the landscapes. What's the difference between an airport and a meadow? What's the difference between a person who's very agitated and tense and a person who's mellow and relaxed and welcoming? So this did a lot for me, and I just took to it. I had just finished some choreography called, it was about animals, and just really getting into the whole physical expression of what a prairie dog feels like, like that, and a lion coming in for the kill, and flocks of birds, at dawn, so it just, that was my personal experience. And then I got these teachings from Trungpa Rinpoche. And then I was at Naropa as a student in 1979. Actually, I think it was in 1979 that I first made contact, not 72. And I started, studying with teachers there. In particular, Marvin Casper was a teacher who was, teaching this a lot. He's now passed. And I had 3 interviews with Trungpa Rinpoche. And, in the last one I said, or at some point I said, I'm really interested in the 5 wisdoms. And, what should I do? And he said, go ahead. And that's 30 years later, I have gone ahead. And my first, a friend very insightfully said, why don't you write a book? And so I did, The 5 Wisdom Energies. And it's about personalities, which don't get solidified so much as understanding the full spectrum of colors of energy each of us have, that we're not limited to just being able to be functional in one of them. It's personalities, emotions. Emotions are a big part of this work, and relationships. So personalities, emotions, and relationships, it's really dynamite work. And now I have, so my first book came out in 2002, 2006. I established what I then called Wisdoms at Work. Now it's just simply 5 Wisdoms Training. And I started that in Paris and Amsterdam. How audacious of me to just jump across the pond and go, oh, here I am. Let's do this. Yeah. So it worked. And now I do basically online trainings, 5 Wisdoms trainings online, and there are 6 modules. And, we start out with an in-depth understanding. Everybody gets to an in-depth understanding of what their particular mix is. And I'm going to, in a minute, I'll tell you what the menu is. And then in the second module, it's all about emotions, and I'll get into that later. And in the third module, it's about relationships. So those I call the personal development modules. And then the second 3 modules are professional development, understanding your life purpose, how you engage effectively using the 5 wisdoms, and then what I call a call to action, getting into the world with this. How can you affect change in the world? So getting back to personalities, unless you want to interrupt me or ask something. Or...
I was just going to reaffirm that when I first read through this and was really feeling into these teachings, because it wasn't something as much that I could intellectualize, you have to kind of feel it with your heart. And for me, like, the experience that I had, it was kind of corrosive to my solid sense of self, and that I started to view my emotions more as kind of like elemental winds rather than this, like, I am this way because of this.
Yep.
The way it just, everything gets a little bit more rocky, and it's just so powerful. But please continue.
Yeah. Well, let me just say something about energy, because energy is this, in the Buddhist understanding, there are 3 levels, to make it simple, of reality. There's a level of reality that's concrete, phenomenal world. Consensus reality, that's a table, that's a cloud in the sky, that's a tree. We sort of have some understanding of the phenomena at a material level. Then there is this energetic level, which is very mysterious, but also conveys language, like a tree that, let's just take up a table that is a wood table, as opposed to, in contrast with, say, a metal table. They radiate very different energies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's this energetic realm that is can be very vivid and very informing and very provocative too, because sometimes energy is subtle and sometimes it is extremely bold, like a tsunami or a thunderstorm. So that is the energetic dimension. The third dimension is the absolute, which is open. It's all accommodating, and it contains everything else.
These are the kayas, right?
These are the kayas in terms of Buddhist understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
In my work with people, I call them the 3 modes. And in the back of my book, I have, the body mode, the speech mode, and the mind mode. And they're basically, phenomena, speech is more about expression. And then mind is sort of mental ideas, your concepts, your view of who you are and your view of the world. And that's often, I mean, it's sort of self-secret, but it's often accessed through body and speech, meaning that if somebody dresses in very flamboyant way and walks with a big stride, they have a certain energy. Let's just call them the Ratna energy, the yellow energy, and their expression. They take up a lot of space. You know, they can do a shaggy dog story that goes on forever. They're full of themselves in a neurotic way. So since I've touched on one of them, let me lay out all of them at this point.
Please do.
Yeah, so the first one, I'm going to start with it, and it's actually, in some ways, the hardest for us to understand because it's kind of background and invisible. And that we call the Buddha energy, and its essence is spaciousness. I like talking about the essence of each of these energies. It's spacious, it's accommodating, it's vast, it's timeless, it's so spacious that is beyond any idea of space that we have. And that one is, and let me just say that each of these has a neurotic or a confused aspect. Neurosis is sort of, sort of a psychological word, but it's basically being confused and dense and not being able to get out of your own way. And then it has a wisdom side, a side that is full of your sense of being a wholesome, good person. So that's we'll get to that when we get into emotions a little more, why these two sides are so important to understand. They're equal and reciprocal in a certain way. So when this spacious quality, the way it moves into its neurosis, and they all do this, is when you self-identify. In other words, in their wisdom, these energies are self-existing. They're just there. Space is there. When you start thinking of my space, you shut down. And with this Buddha energy, space becomes too much. There's too much space. And so you get triggered. You get threatened by that very thing that is wisdom. And you shut down. You go blind, deaf, and dumb. You withdraw. You retreat. You don't care. Let someone else do it. It will pass anyway. Who cares? That kind of just someone who is very withdrawn. And it's actually that withdrawal has a lot of wisdom in it. What I've discovered is that this Buddha energy seems like it's in its withdrawal could be seen as neurotic, but actually you don't always have to answer the phone. You don't always have to listen to the news. There's incredible intelligence in this fundamental ignoring which this energy has. So that's the good news. So the second one is called the Vajra energy, and its essence is clarity. It just its wisdom is a mirror-like clarity, and this mirror-like clarity is like you reflect what's there without any bias, like a clear mirror. Or I like the image of a mountain lake, or a lake that's just absolutely still, and it reflects everything that's around it, the trees, the mountains, the whatever, and it's just clear. And the wisdom of this energy is that it has no bias. So it just calls it like it is, without bias, without any kind of self-serving. And people who have a lot of this energy are like, CEOs, people with a big vision for the world. Trungpa Rinpoche, my teacher, what I loved about him was many, many things, but, CEOs have a 5-year plan. He had the 400-year plan. So it's like huge. And his big vision was creating enlightened society. Well, why stop at anything? Just go for what it would be like to live in a world where everybody has a fundamental understanding of goodness, a profound goodness, not, Sunday go to meeting goodness, not walk your grandmother across the street goodness, but this profundity of reality that is good. And have, I'm describing enlightened society here, and all acts are based on kindness and benefiting others. Wouldn't that be great?
It would be so good.
Yeah, so good. So this is, I'm talking about how big a vision people with a lot of clear Vajra energy can be. It could also be very much like, I'm someone who very much plans. I sort of plan my life. If I have to do anything, I get like I'm a trainer in personal and professional development. I love creating curriculum. Now, everybody goes at their own pace, and I go, okay, you're not quite there yet. Maybe next year. But there's this sense of having the big vision, just like I just laid out 6 modules, going from, well, who am I anyway, to I'm going to act in the world. So that's the trajectory of my training, which in a very small way with a small group of people. And I like keeping my group small because I work very personally with people. In my small way, I contribute. Okay. So how this one gets into a mess of conflicting emotions, etc., stuck place. I call them shine place and stuck place. This one gets stuck because it says, it's my vision. I'm the one that sees clearly. Therefore, I'm right. Ooh. I'm right. That makes you wrong. And so this, in its self-referencing, which is where it goes into its stuck place, is all about I'm right, we should is a big one in it. We should do this. It's based on principles and tremendous sense of bureaucracy and policy. We're going to do this right. So it's very rigid. It's very withdrawn interpersonally because it just sort of stays in a conceptual mode. And that's where its neurosis is.
Yeah, it's almost like, would you say that when an energy kind of congests into its neurotic qualities, it kind of closes itself off to the dance and the interplay of the entire energetic system, and it's just like kind of high on itself, right?
Exactly. Well put, Brett. Very well put. I call it making yourself stupid.
That's a great way to do it too. Yeah.
When you self-reference, you basically become more stupid.
Yeah. Wow.
A little blunt, but
I think bluntness is kind of needed every now and again. I'm starting to see some Vajra in you a little bit.
Oh yeah. A lot of people think I'm Vajra because I was married to a very Vajra man for 22 years, and I learned a lot rubbed off on me. I learned how to teach the Dharma a lot from him, and then I graduated, and I only do it my way. Yeah. But to a real Vajra, I'm a wimp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain ways that Vajras feel really comfortable, and I can do some of that. I mostly am Vajra about teaching. In other, anyway, enough about me. So I was starting to talk about the third one, Ratna. Ratna, which means jewel, is this, the wisdom is this tremendous sense of equanimity. Equanimity because it has nothing more to desire. It has the sense of abundance and richness and a sense of being completely fulfilled and satisfied. So you radiate a sense of equanimity. And people with a lot of this quality come from this place, and they're just naturally very generous, and they're naturally very hospitable. You know, come into my house, there's the cookie jar. Oh, I just baked a cake and it's over on the counter there. Why don't you stop in for dinner anytime? It doesn't matter when. I always have a lot of food. It's okay, just come. You know, it's that sense of just, it accommodates everyone. It makes no sense, and so it has also a sense of equality. Equanimity and equality. Anybody is as good as anybody else. There's also a sense of equality around experience. In other words, what we call bad experiences, painful experiences, are rich. Oh wow, this is heavy duty here. This is a really heavy duty experience. Or, you know, something that's joyful. They're equal. You embrace the world. And this one is huge. This one is like, they're tremendous builders of teams and communities because they welcome everybody. They tend to have a lot of be very resourceful. Oh, you want to write a book about women? Oh, come into my library. I have 10 books here on women's studies. You know, it's that kind of thing. And I'm picturing people as I...
Yeah, I know I am too. I'm like, oh, I know these people.
I know these people, yeah. So Vajra and Ratna combined, oh boy, you have a really, a person who has got this huge mind, and they fill it with a tremendous amount of knowledge. So the way this one gets in trouble, you'll be curious to know, and a lot of people get into trouble with this, is when they start self-referencing, they feel that they don't have enough, that everything out there is abundant, and all my friends have, you know, things that I don't have, and I just don't have enough. So just to sort of give a very poignant example, the mother wound. There are many, many people suffer from what's been called the mother wound, and that is not getting enough motherly attention, which is absolutely important to a baby, a toddler. Just that warm, embracing, I'm here, I kiss you, I hug you, I'm unconditionally in love with you. And when you don't get that, okay, and I'm going into early childhood trauma here, when you don't get that, you basically feel that you're not good enough. And that is something that many, many people suffer with in this day and age. But even leaving trauma aside, there is this sense of not having enough. So you become needy, you become greedy, you want everything in your surroundings. It creates, I'm a psychotherapist as well, so I know it creates eating disorders, and the mother wound and eating disorders are like really linked. So that's a rather extreme example. And how you sort of heal from the mother wound is you don't want to like get everything you want. You begin to see that the richness is inside of you. Yeah, and I'll get to that again when we talk about emotions. So it's on the one hand expansive and accommodating, and on the other hand you can just narrow yourself into this place of what we call poverty mentality, needy and greedy and never enough, never enough. You never feel you get enough because, way back you didn't.
Right.
So the next question?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the next one, the fourth one is Padma. And Padma is what everybody wants to be. It's like there are a lot of wannabe Padmas.
Yeah.
And this energy is about passion. That's its essence. And by passion, I mean sense of joining, merging, connecting with other. And other could be a person, which is so familiar to us, whether the passion's there or not there, both sides. It could be your work. It could be an artist just like being passionate about their work, or a CEO loving to envision and partake in what they've created. So interestingly, this has an interesting traditionally wisdom. It's called discriminating awareness. This energy, because it wants to connect and merge, likes to be really close up to the world. It just likes the world to be right there in intimate moments. Absolutely special, unique moments. So it's very much about intimacy. And it has this sensibility to discriminate one thing from another. Like it really knows the essence of what an orange is, the essence of what an apple is, the essence of John versus the essence of Albert, and so it navigates this very this world full of a very sensitive sensibility. So they make great artists, performers, as well as visual artists, directors. Know that. I worked with in my dance career, I was a ballet dancer for many, many years, and I worked with an incredible Anthony Tudor in one choreography, and he spent more time with me turning my head in a particular scenario than he did on the most difficult, challenging pirouette in attitude, with my leg in the air. And he said, it's how you turn your head is going to speak. So Padma people have a great sense of the world speaking to them, and they this is why they're great artists, because they take in the world, and they feel it fully. And I've been an artist all my life, and then you express it in your medium, whether it's dance or music or art or poetry. So it's that sense of total connection with the world and expressiveness. You want to express, you want to share in intimate moments. So a lot of these, the last two I've talked about, Ratna and Padma, are very connected with passion. Both of them are about passion. And so they're talked about as the feminine, more feminine principles. When I talk about the next one, I'll talk about the masculine principle. But they're often confused, Ratna and Padma, because they're all sort of wanting this connection. But I'll give you an example. A Ratna wants to host, in my second book, I wrote characters, and my Ratna character in that book is Gabriella. And she could have been an opera star, but she chose to live on a ranch with her horses and her family and 5 dogs. And, that's Ratna. And she loves to host. 10 people at the table is about her style. Padma wants a dinner for 2 at a really romantic restaurant with candlelight and wine and just sharing intimacies. That's the difference in the expression of passion between Ratna and Padma. Mm-hmm. So you think Padma is this wonderful place. It's full of pleasure, and Padma people are very charismatic, and they're people. People love them. They love people. It's pleasurable. They create pleasurable situations. My son, who lives in California, where I live now too, is one of these Padma people. He's got all the energies, frankly, but his Padma, he would have. I would visit him. I visited him once. This was before I lived there, and I was on a Friday, and I said, "So what did you do last night?" He said, "I went to a party." And I said, "A party on a Thursday night?" And he says, "Yeah, it's the new party night." Well, I say, "What do you do on Friday and Saturday?" "Oh, those are party nights too."
Sounds like I get along with your son.
So the way this one gets into its stuck place, is that it doesn't have enough pleasure. It wants more and more pleasure. So getting into extreme states, it can be addictive, drugs, alcohol. And when you don't have that, when you don't have your fix, my fix has always been the Dharma, so I'm safe.
Yeah. Inexhaustible source.
An exhaustible source. Yeah, I picked a good one.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that, you get extremely depressed. And this one is, in my opinion, the one that's most probably could commit suicide, but you can't sort of do that really. Very depressed. And you basically, if you don't have it, it's like your world that was so colorful all of a sudden goes black and white. The rug is pulled out from underneath you. Basically the fire goes out. Each of these, I'm not going to have time to get into all the elements they're associated with, but this one is associated with fire. And it's basically, if you don't have the Padma pleasure of your partner or your parties, a lot of people have suffered a lot during COVID because of not enough partying, not enough personal contact in the flesh. This is great, but, have gotten very depressed, have gotten into this sort of withdrawal, depression. And I, spoke to some of them, obviously. So, it just feels like a life is not worth living, basically. Yeah.
How is the Padma kind of craving different than the Ratna? Because I've always associated the neurotic of Ratna with kind of like the hungry ghost realm, if we're transposing it over the wheel of life. And I've always heard that that's like the realm of like addiction. And how are those different?
Well, I would say that both could get into addiction. Ratna is the sense of not enough. So I want more and more. Padma is very specific. I want him. I want that dress in the window. It's much more personalized, you could say, or specific. Let me see if I can. I think that's the basic difference.
That sums it up pretty well.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to karma, the fifth one. And karma is this energy that is about action and accomplishing. So it's wisdom is all accomplishing action for the benefit of others. In other words, it's very specific that in its wisdom, it is about others. It's not about self-aggrandizement. And so people with a lot of this energy, they are have the right tools. They work in timely and appropriate ways. They have timelines. They know when to do things, when not to do things even. When to also to bring under their leadership people who will help to make things happen. So they harness other people's energy in trying to make things happen. And where they get into trouble, into stuck place, is that they sense the ability to make things happen. They think they're the only ones that can really do the job. And they are control freaks. They need to be in control. And they need to tell everyone else what to do, because no one else really knows as well as they do that what's timely, what's efficient, what's going to get the job done, how to meet the deadline, etc. So they create wonderful situations to make something happen. But on the other hand, when they're stuck, they're confrontational. They're, as I said, they're controlling. So other people could feel abused by them, like used. In fact, that's what they do. They use other people. And I'm talking about, neurosis. We see this around us. So it's very, it again shuts off people from the flow.
Yeah, what I really found powerful about this teaching as I was going through it, and it was kind of the same with the Wheel of Life, is that this is honestly like a completely secular way to view the world. Like, this doesn't really require any sort of mystical or metaphysical vision. Like, when you really truly sit with this teaching and spend some time in like understanding each of these energies and feeling them, you can't not. There's really no like arguing with it. You just start to see it, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, really well said. And that brings me back to absolute where we start when I do my trainings, and that's with the postures, the 5 postures that Trungpa Rinpoche devised with senior students of his in the early 70s. I wasn't there at the time, but I've read all the transcripts and listened to what was being said and blah, blah, blah. And they're in my books, all that information. But each of the posture basically evokes the energy in both its shine and its stuck. And again, traditional Buddhism has a lot of baggage, you could say. And I don't mean to be, using that in a negative way necessarily, but you need to know to do a traditional Buddhist Vajrayana, Tantric, you need to know the liturgy inside out. You need to know the iconography, the meaning of each of the symbols, like in the Tanka back here. What do all those symbols mean? What is the deity expressing there? You need to know mantras. You need to know hand mudras or gestures. There's a lot of what I consider veils to go through to get traditional Buddhist, Tantric Buddhist teachings. the power of Five Wisdoms teachings is that you take the posture, and I do this online too. I mean, people practice at home. They get the glasses. We produce the glasses and send them out to people because they're done in a posture with colored glasses, and the combination of the color and the posture is what evokes these energies. Yeah, and you have immediate experience in your body, in your emotions. Your breathing could change. Your thoughts change, and I call it, like dipping people in different colors. And so, woo! What did you come out today?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and it's very, very powerful. I mean, whether I do on-site training or online training, people come out. This is what is so magical. People come out with textbook descriptions of their experience of being in each color, each energy.
Wow.
Whoa. There is
and it
some...
lines up?
It lines up. I mean, I'm not saying everyone every time, but enough to make me go, oh, wow, each time. Like, I'm just in the process of finishing module 1, and that's what's happening, I get together with them and I say, okay, describe your experience. And the power of the group is they learned that in that particular energy, there's a whole world of possibility. Why? Because you bring your however many years of being who you are into the posture. So if you're somebody that has a lot of Vajra in you, okay, to speak the language, if you have a lot of Vajra in you and you're in the Padma posture, you have a different mix of experience than if someone who is in, say, has a lot of Buddha, very spacious, and does the Padma pose. Very different experiences. So I think it's time to say at this point what the fruition of this work is, these teachings, this practice, is that you have, even though it might not be so familiar to you in the beginning, you gain a familiarity, a deep psychophysical familiarity with each of the energies. And you know where your shine is with them and where you get stuck. Not only that, but when you meet Jim Smith, oh, he's very Vajra, so he's going to be shining here, but I bet he's going to get stuck there. And so you have a way of navigating relationships. So the fruition is to have what I call 5 gears, and not wisdom gears. So you're not going into the world with your personal agenda, which could be, a little confused, etc. But you have the 5 wisdoms within you, and you meet every situation with whatever wisdom is needed. Yeah, or combinations of wisdoms. Like you go, you're late to catch your plane. You go into karma energy, calm mind, but you speed. Daughter comes home from school and she's crying. Embrace her with Ratna Padma. Just hold her. So you have this full spectrum of energetic wisdom to meet the situations, and it takes you out of self-referencing ego. That's the fruition of this working with the 5 wisdoms.
That is a absolutely beautiful way of saying that.
Yeah.
So what happens if you're going through life and you realize that you're operating out of like a more closed down self-referential point? Is this something we should push away against? I mean, nobody likes to be uncomfortable. So what do we do when we're like, oh, we're like locked in?
Yeah.
Like, how do you navigate that dance?
Yeah, good question, which brings me to the next topic. We talked about personalities, and this one's about emotions and transmutation. Transmutation is not turning apples into oranges. Transmutation, and this is Trungpa Rinpoche's word, is getting to the essence, the pure essence of an orange, the pure essence of an apple. So you take an emotional upheaval and you do not, emotions in this tantric way, you do not push away. You learn to stay with, hold, be with, feel it in your body, feeling how your breathing is. And you, at some point, it melts. And that melting is because of this magical word called Maitri. Maitri is unconditional loving kindness towards whatever arises. And in my book, I unpack that word. It's a matter of accommodation. It's a matter of it being familiar. Oh, yeah, I've been here forever. Every time, he says this, I go to this place. So it's familiarity. And psychophysically, there's a sense of melting. It's warm, melting energy. That's Maitri. Mm-hmm. I'm describing a few of the aspects of Maitri.
Real quick, before we go on, is there a chance that somebody could maybe use that as a means of spiritually bypassing, where like, I have this emotion, I'm going to love it, and then they like use that as a means to like there's like a level of subtlety there, right?
Well, spiritual bypassing is, I feel, one of the things that is doing this work protects us against, because I was talking about how when you're doing traditional practice, you can get into, visualizing the deity, etc., and you get into this whole realm of sort of religiosity and spirituality. The thing about working with the postures is that it really works with the nitty-gritty of who you are. And so it's very precisely not about getting caught up in spiritual bypassing. And Maitri is brought into this equation of working with shine and stuck because it is the catalyst which turns stuck into shine. The same energy has both its stuck place and its shine place. And if you embrace that particular energy, whether it's Vajra, Vajra, say anger, whether it's anger or passion or jealousy, if you stay with it, you come into the wisdom of that energy. Now, I'm putting this in a very short way. This is actually a training that I do. And I give an example of transmutation in at the end of one of my chapters in my first book. But it shouldn't really be done alone unless you have a lot of practice stability. So transmutation is really something that is best done when you are in a training with an authorized trainer.
Okay. Is there anything that folks can do at home who this may be the first time they've heard anything about Buddhism and they're like, I'm really resonating with this, but like, how can I kind of train myself to be able to like connect more deeply with these energies outside, taking the training, of course, but is there something like by the end of today they could do to like kind of get more of a tactile sense of what's going on here?
Sure. I would say read my first book first. The first book was to make it just accessible to anybody. whether you give it as a Christmas gift to your grandmother or you give it to a colleague or your child. My children grew up on the five wisdoms. And we speak the language. We know, we speak, we speak the language. So reading my first book, the second book is more about how it's applied, how the five wisdoms are applied in the world. And I use most of that material for the professional development training I do. The other thing is going onto my website. There's a lot of description. If you go to the Five Wisdoms page, there's a description of each page there. It's this website is beautiful. I don't know, you've seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was done by a friend of mine, and it's just a magical website because there's so much color in it. And let's see, and it's got lots of, aside from my books, there's lots of articles and some interviews I've done, lots of stuff that you can zero in on what different things I've said at different times. There's videos. What else? And then there's graphics. The Natural Brilliance book had a lot of graphics, and they didn't put it in the book because too expensive. So I put them online. So if you go to books and go to Natural Brilliance and then go to the online graphics, I have a whole keynote, old name PowerPoint, on, I think I have like 40 slides, keynote slides, again, done by my friend Dave Zahn, working with me about different aspects. Those are part of my training. My trainings have 30 to 50 page workbooks that go with the workbooks. So they have online sessions with me. They have what I call reflection circles where I get out of the way and they get peer level communication, help to create a community. I now have mentors that work with the reflection circles who sort of facilitate them and then give me feedback about what's going on. So the training is very rich to, if someone's really interested, I would recommend signing up for a training. And just to get going, I'd say my books, my articles, my blogs, my videos.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Where would you say that meditation comes into this?
Good.
I mean, I learned about it through meditation, and for me, that was kind of what, I don't know if without the meditative work that I've been doing, I'm just like awareness training and doing like the open technique that Trungpa Rinpoche shared with us, that for me is really what gave me this sense of like grounding in the present moment, that I started to see the flittering of these energies. Do you think that that's a crucial part?
Crucial. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sitting meditation is the sixth posture, or the first posture, the baseline posture. These basically, what sitting meditation does is that the mindfulness aspect is to calm and tame and settle. The awareness aspect, and in our tradition, we do both. We do mindfulness and awareness. And the awareness is to lift the gaze and to be able to take in whatever's happening. So that is absolutely is always done in conjunction with the postures. I assign people to do 20 minutes of sitting, 20 minutes of postures, another 10 minutes of sitting, or what we call aimless wandering, which is getting into your world. And, my world's different today. I just got dipped in red.
Yeah.
So it's, yes. And the more people have with coming to some sense of stability in their sitting practice, the more the energies are going to resonate with them in their wisdom. If there isn't enough, stability, In other words, by that I mean there's a lot of confusion, etc. People have it in their body and can't sit still, or blah blah blah. Then the stuck part of the energies is more likely to arise.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I'm glad that you spent some time talking about like the training. I think a lot of people in my generation have kind of an aversion to teachers. There's kind of this like free-for-all spiritual marketplace that's going on right now. And everybody's really attached to the idea like you are your own guru, so we don't need teachers. And like I agree to a degree that like, yeah, you are your own guru, but if you don't have like the guidance, especially for these very subtle and nuanced practices, like these things have been baking for thousands of years. And in order to like really navigate it, like you need a teacher, you need to be plugging into these trainings. And that's something I realized working with David. So I guess I just want to encourage listeners as we're talking about this, like if you really want to tap into this, you got to get a teacher.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I would say is that my trainings are very person-centered. Everything I do online in the sessions, the hour and a half sessions with me is interactive. I don't download knowledge. That's why I say I write books and create workbooks, so that the sort of the didactic aspect people can read, and they can read in their own time to some extent, and then it's engaging with people. And frankly, that I've been teaching this, guiding people with this for over 30 years now, and what makes it still so vital for me is that it's all about the people. It's all about who you are. And I am fascinated with who you are.
Yeah, I'm reading through, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. I know you brought that up as the first book. And I reread the chapter on initiation where I think the phrase is Abhisheka.
Abhisheka.
Is that
Yeah.
Abhisheka? And it's like that, the meeting of minds, and I think that is, for this specific lineage, it's just so important. Like I've been practicing spirituality or kind of studying Buddhism through like Alan Watts and Ram Dass, and it wasn't until I started meeting minds with people who've actually done the work that I was like, oh, I don't know anything, which is such an important space to be,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well said. And I also really believe in the inner guru. I basically, the Buddha said, don't believe anything until you experience it yourself. And that's from the Buddha,
Right.
So, and someone said recently that I want a teacher. Can I remember this? Have a teacher. Let me see if I can find it. Have a teacher who, have devotion to a teacher who tells you to rely on yourself. I love that. Be with a teacher who tells you to rely on yourself. And Trungpa Rinpoche did that. He brought Westerners into, places that traditional Buddhist teachers just never thought we would go. But we can do it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting with his style is that like that you called them like the veils earlier. They had like these very like specific things you needed to do, but his approach really felt like it was like kind of open source, and that like anyone can do this and you don't need to be a Buddhist in order to like really step on this path. And to me, like that kind of freedom, I think it's a testament to the integrity of the teachings and his heart. And I think it's honestly like maybe more true to like the Buddhist teachings, he wasn't trying to turn people into Buddhists. He was trying to help people become awake,
Exactly. Exactly. He even said something. He said, I came to the West not as an ambassador from the East, something like this, but as a human being. He wanted to be a human being. And, there's amazing stories of the first years. Like he was this group of hippies, they call themselves the pygmies, got enamored with him. And they would, there's this land up in the Rocky Mountains above, north of Boulder, Colorado, and they would go there and have parties and, you know, and drink beer on the dirt floor and watch television or something like, I think, yeah, there was a television there. And then they'd put a cloth over the television and it would be the shrine. And he just like totally just got down and dirty with them, you know, just human to human. And that was, he turned a lot of people on that way because he was just a person. And that's what I, you know, that's what I like. Of course, to compare myself to Rinpoche is pretentious, but the message of just be who you are. In fact, he said, be who you are again and again and again. I ramped that up a bit. I said, be the best of who you are. In other words, be your shine. Then there's Oscar Wilde, he said, who says, be who you are. Everyone else is taken.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Before we go, because we are at an hour and I want to respect your time, I had the sensation to ask, like, do you feel like a sense of responsibility as like a steward of these teachings? Because in the West, these are not really getting talked about at all. And like I said, these are thousands of years old. And, you know, like, do you kind of feel like maybe like one of the last bastions for this?
I definitely feel like a steward. And in terms of, you know, it's called Samaya. There's a commitment I have to doing this. And, you know, I feel really strongly that these are extremely powerful teachings that needs to get out in the world more. And I'm doing my very little bit, and I'm training teachers too at this. You know, I've been training teachers for ages, but it's not enough in the world, and everything that we can do to make that happen would be better. Because, see, I think a lot of people have seen, or some people have seen the five wisdoms or the five Buddha families, is the more traditional name, as maybe not quite Buddhism. And my next book, the book I'm working on tentative title is The Five Wisdoms of Tantric Buddhism. I'm going to show how absolutely at the heart of Tantric Buddhism these teachings are. They're just inseparable from Tantric Buddhism. And hopefully maybe more people will go, oh, right? Okay. But they're very, you know, doing the postures is challenging. You know, it's a challenging practice. It really digs up your stuff. And, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily want to go there.
Well, that's exactly where we need to go. It's where we don't want to.
Absolutely. My bottom line is the reason we're having so much trouble in the world is because everybody hasn't done a five wisdoms training. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I think if more people understood this, there would be less fighting. That's the one thing I noticed is I stopped taking things as personal, and I stopped being as critical of other people because I'm able to recognize the energy that they're emanating, and then it's like, oh, that's just their karma energy is getting stuck, and like that's just their energy, and like I can respond to with my own, you know. And that was really the biggest takeaway for me is like, not only is my sense. Sorry, what?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what I didn't say about the masculine energy or Vajra and karma are more masculine. It doesn't mean that they're in men, but they're masculine principle. And we're dominated by a masculine energy in our society worldwide. So it's created a tremendous amount of suffering having that much masculine energy in our world.
Do you think that might be why I feel like in the West there is a lot of the closed off Padma and Ratna? Do you think it's because we have so much masculine that the feminine gets it responds by contracting maybe? Yeah,
women get denigrated and treated as prostitutes and lesser beings. I mean, it's just, you know, historically what has happened. So there's a lot more to say about this, but
Yeah.
I'm doing
Hour
a training at Dorje Den Maling in Nova Scotia, a week-long training, which is it's a hybrid. It'll be online too, about the masculine and feminine energies in the Five Wisdoms mandala.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Irini, thank you so much. Like, genuinely, this was an honor. I really enjoyed this conversation. Where can people find you? How can they get connected deeper with these trainings?
Go to my website and contact me. If they want to contact me personally. Yep.
Okay.
I'm
And
based
that's at IriniRockwell.com.
No, fivewisdomsinstitute.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll have those links in all the descriptions for people.
Yeah,
as well.
Five Wisdoms.
So I just wanted to.
Yeah, fivewisdomsinstitute.com. Contact me. There's an application form for the training. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you, Brett. And be well. Good work.
You too.
Good work.
Thanks. Yes.
Bye.
Okay. All right, friends, that was the episode. Thank you so much for listening all the way through till the end. It really does mean a lot to me that you're showing up and putting some time in and sharing this space with me and my guests, because I'm really passionate about all the things these people are bringing to the table, and I want to share that passion. That was Irini Rockwell. You can check her out at the fivewisdomsinstitute.com. We talked a bit about her training there, and I definitely suggest if you are interested, if this sparked a resonance within you, to check her out. She's very accessible, and you can even start by just getting one of her books. Some links will be down in the descriptions below if you're on the YouTube or the website. That'll be down below. The website is 21stcenturyvitalism.com. If you haven't checked it out yet, we got brand new, super shiny, really crisp, good graphics done from the Gallery Society out of Detroit. Really happy with how that all turned out. If you want to be joining us in 2 weeks, we have Russell Staltzer coming on to talk about Rolfing, aka structural integration. He's been a practitioner for the past 30-something years and is on the executive board of education for the Rolfing Institute. He is really awesome. I actually just got done talking with him and before preparing this, and I really like that conversation too. And at the start of this, I was like, yeah, this is my favorite, but I'm realizing that every conversation is my favorite. So if you want to support the show, head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, subscribe on YouTube, like, comment, do all that stuff. Any interaction, it really, really helps. I don't know where that Kermit the Frog voice came from, but it really does help. So like us on Instagram, Facebook, share it with your friends. If you find an episode that you think will benefit somebody else's current happenstance, then share it along. There's a lot of variety. So if you're just tuning in for the first time now, go check out some older episodes. Everyone is fairly different from a very different perspective, but it all has to do with this idea of becoming fully alive right here, right now. So, all right. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day.